Hello, and welcome back to our How To Corner. I'm Dr. Will Gray. And in today's episode, we're going to discuss how to continue playing softball at a high level all seasons. For everybody that's new here, please like, subscribe, share the content, and make comments about anything that you want to learn about or any questions that you have about this podcast after you listen. So, let's cover a few topics we're going to cover today. We're going to talk about playing the sport, we're going to talk about injuries, recovery, and performance training. And with those, we're going to dive into them and kind of expand upon them. The first thing, though, is what's required while playing, right? So this is for the coaching aspect, and it's from a standpoint of trying to get the most out of your athletes, not what to do on the field when you're coaching, but how to manage your players with their respective, injuries or when they're not having good performances and trying to figure out what's going on, right? So player management, for me, it's really important to know your players, right? It takes a special coach. In this day and age, just to be honest here, there's not a lot of coaches that are that special. That's why a lot of them have staffs, right? At a high level, the assistants are really much closer than head coaches are. In addition to this, the coaches at a little league level have a lot more things they have to juggle, and they're trying to learn their kids. They're trying to be attentive, but the parents, chip in a little bit more and be able to give them some direction. But when they're playing the sport and they're just determining that, hey, man, they're not playing at a high level, this is where the coach has to kick in their expertise of understanding, hey, my pitcher's not pitching well this week, haven't pitched well in a couple of weeks. Hmm, I've really been pitching them just probably too much. I need to rotate their position to give their body a opportunity to recover from what they were doing, right? And some people speak to the form of like toughness. I don't believe mental toughness can be done one way. I think mental toughness for everybody is more variable in the sense that you gain it, excuse me, you gain it for different reasons, right? What I mean by that, sometimes it's just the fact that you don't want to be denied. Doesn't come from somebody screaming at you or somebody trying to drill into you to push through, right? Sometimes it's from people saying, hey, push through, play through a little something, right? Sometimes it's just your motivation to just perform well. Like that's your toughness. Like I'm gonna perform well. Sometimes it's due to the fact that this is how you're going to be able to get to the next phase in your life, whether it's college or whatever. So this is your meal ticket. So when you're thinking about someone playing, and especially when they start, playing at a young age, the coaches have to manage one their personality, two their ability to be able to play right. Like how are they looking? What do they present like today? And then last but not least, what's the reasoning behind your decisions you're making to play them as much as you're playing them? There are a lot of travel teams. People can play on multiple travel teams per week, right? If you wanted to. And honestly, in this day and age of college sports, the introduction of the transfer portal, in addition to how lazy some recruiting happens. I said literally how lazy recruiting goes. You're almost pressured into doing that whole gauntlet of trying to find the travel team, trying to see if you can get on a higher team, and then the work up to that is pretty tough. Here's one something I want parents to be aware of as well as coaches. Development of said player is just as important as them getting exposure. Because once you get to a certain level and you don't perform well, you can't play, although you have the potential, you're gonna drop off the cliff. I promise you. You're only as good as your last performance. So when parents and coaches are trying to figure out what's required while playing, you have to manage your player, learn your player to make sure they perform at their highest level and they actually are doing what they need to do, in order to maintain that, right? And have some reasoning behind it. If you're unsure of what the reasoning needs to be, that's when you need to reach out and get some actual insight from somebody else that's in the field when it comes to not just coaching, but maybe the health aspect of it, right? The recovery, the rehab. Now, whew, that's a mouthful. In softball, there are a lot of common injuries I think people tend to not pay attention to because of the functional throwing motion of the pitchers. and softball. I feel like softball gets clumped into this world of like, hey, the ladies, or the players, period, do not have any type of actual shoulder injuries, very minimum because of just functioning off. These starters can pitch 100 pitches, come back, a couple of days later, pitch another 100. Man, it's amazing, right? But shoulder pain, shin splints, patellar tendonitis, and ankle/foot ailments are very common in this sport. Shoulder pain is the most common. All right. A lot of these players who are doing this sport are not conditioned to be able to do this sport at a certain level. They do not have an actual workout program or training regimen that they do. They start, they play, their mechanics are probably not great, right? Just getting their actual foundation down and trying to make sure that they can fundamentally perform certain aspects of the game, like throwing a softball properly, swinging a bat, running bases, making turns when you're running, how to actually track a ball, and run and catch the ball. Those things contribute to a lot of problems that tend to come out later, shoulder pain being one of them, right? For instance, let's talk about the bat catcher. How many times does the bat catcher throw the ball back to the pitcher during the game? Every time the pitcher throws to them, they throw back. They're literally having a mound session behind the play, right? The other thing that I think people take for granted is that the weakness of these players at different positions tend to show up really early in their playing career as well as in their seasons. Shows it really early. But nobody thinks about the fact that, hey man, you have a lot of things going on when you're especially working with ladies who play softball, right? You can have nutritional stuff that needs to be addressed. You have also things with your OBGYN and menstrual cycles that need to be addressed that affects your ability to be able to have certain strength or play at a certain level, and also can affect your diet, right? And it can also cause your performance to be a little different. But with the shoulder pain aspect, there's a lot of repetitive trauma there. So in order for you to be able to have recovery, there's certain things that have to happen. One thing that you must do is strengthen the player's cuff and scapular muscles, period. Your run boards, your mid traps. I know I'm saying a lot of foreign words for people, but that back part of their body is the most important part of their body to strengthen. Because if that foundation sucks, the shoulder is going to be no good. The shoulder joint is the most stable, unstable joint in your whole body. It really is. Now let's move on to shin splints. Shin splints impacts performance drastically. It affects running, planting, it affects fielding, it affects hitting because of the fact that a lot of these fields have different surfaces. You have a lot of fields that have infield turf now and outfield grass. They have dirt. Some fields are turf only. Like all these different surfaces are problematic. And not to mention, you plan on these surfaces with cleats. Cleats are not made to give you support, they're made to prevent you from falling. Seriously, they're not made to give you proper foot support to be able to offload some of those forces that are going through your legs. They're made to prevent you from falling. So, with that, when you have shin splints, it can really affect everything about your performance to a point where it makes you not even want to play sometimes. And it can also cause you to have stress fractures in your shin. Somebody said, man, that's kind of drastic. Okay, guys, I played a lot of sports growing up at a very, very high level, I like to think. And one thing I can say is that I had a stress fracture in my tibia. Guess why? Because I had shin splints that went unaddressed. Didn't have any idea of what they were. The way the healthcare profession is set up then, and even now, is worse. People are not attentive in the healthcare profession when it comes to athletes, especially if you're not an athlete of note. And that's just me being honest. I hate to crush people. They don't care if you're injured unless you're an athlete of note. Then they care a little more. If you have a surgical procedure needs to occur, yeah, they are very attentive to that. But when you have like a nagging injury, they're not trying to press that issue too much. It's just not how the healthcare industry is set up. Now, back to the topic. When you have shin splints, you will eventually lead to you having a lot of repetitive trauma in your tibia or your lower leg. Um, and as a result of that, you don't want that to continue. You need to address it. You need to break down that tissue. You need to make sure there's not any, inflammation that's just chronic in one specific area of your leg. And if that is the case, you need to work on your shoe, or get you some orthotics or some kind. And I'm gonna say orthotics, not the ones from Walmart. Please, people. Oh my goodness. Ah, Dr. Scholl's do not make orthotics for you to play in. Whew. And the orthotics should not cost you $600. They are, oh my God, they should not cost you $600. So for everybody who's listening to me, if you want to get fitted for some orthotics, please reach out to us. We can guide you through the process and make it very affordable for you. I just hate the fact that people really think you have to pay $600, $700 for some really good orthotics. You do not. You do not. It's not true. It's a lie. But in order to address transplants, orthotics is an option, as well as having a sports therapist that can actually help you to be able to overcome some of those repetitive injuries. Now, the next piece, the patella tendonitis. Patella tendonitis causes a lot of the knee pain, but there's also some stuff with your knees that I think a lot of coaches and players are not considering, as well as parents. Most ladies have hips, right? When you have wider hips, your Q angle, which is how your thigh bone goes down towards your knee joint, is a lot wider or bigger, which means that you have a lot of stress going through the medial part of your knees, right? And that causes things to be different when it comes to your patella tracking as well as your quad sizes. So I'm not saying that like to give you information that you're like, oh my God, like, yeah, we're ladies, we have hips. Yeah, no, no. It's and that anatomy wise, it predisposes you to more stress through your knees in certain areas, right? So as a result of that, what you have to realize is that when you have a player that has some knee discomfort, immediately get it addressed. Immediately get it addressed. I don't care how tough you think your program is, immediately get it addressed. I don't care how tough you think your player is, get it addressed. If they have a knee issue, it's going to turn into some more just because of the stresses of the knees as far as what they have to go under when you're playing sports already. Right. All right. The last piece is the ankle foot ailments. This kind of ties back into the orthotics as well as the cleats, and the cleats not being the best when it comes to foot comfort. And there's a reason why a lot of people roll their ankles a lot of times when they're playing. Right. The reason for that is because they are on a cleat. A cleat is elevated off the ground, which gives you a lot more ability to be able to tip over when you're walking or running. Right. Not to mention on turf, cleats are not necessarily going in the turf. That's why you have rubber spikes, right? Some people play on turf with, gym shoes, like just what it is. But a lot of these athletes in this day and age, they wear lows. People don't really have mids anymore. They don't like them. It's not stylish. So, but the point though, even with them having lows, just having that cleat, you have a lot of ankle rolls that happen. You have a lot of stresses that go through the foot because of the cleat itself. So it's so hard to offset it. Orthotics, as well as if they have ankle injuries, man, just go to your local physical therapist. Um, Scratch that. No, go to the physical therapist that you can find that's the best equipped to be able to do this rehab and just get your ankle taken care of. You roll it, they can rehab it for a week. You'll be good to go in about 10 days, as far as like not having pain, but keep your ankles as strong as possible. All right. Recovery post game practice. What does it look like, ice or heat? To be honest with you, it can be either or. In this realm of sports now, what's going on is that they're starting to use more heat. I'm okay with either or. It's like a circle. It's going to cycle back to doing ice eventually, just what it is. But with the pitcher, heat after games is good to start with get their circulation really going to be able to flush out a lot of that deoxygenated blood, but also inflammation. Get it out of your shoulder and your arm back to your core so you can recover a little quicker. And then hit it with some ice later. So that contrast treatment is important. How often to recover every day versus after games? I feel like it should be after any vigorous workout, exercise, practice that you know you went really hard in, but definitely after games. When I say games plural. A lot of times, especially in the off season, you're playing a lot of games in one day or a lot of games in a weekend. You really need to stay on top of your recovery. Your recovery consists of you getting in an Epsom salt bath. It can consider an ice bath, consider just ice and heat on certain joints and areas of your body, as well as getting protein in your body, shakes to be able to recover, after your workouts, as well as your games, because your body needs something to replenish what it has expelled, right? Do you lift weights to recover? How much slash how many times a week? Yes, I would lift weights post game or next day after the game if possible. And I would have myself a nice little regimen, about 5 to 6 lifts, nothing crazy, that address the issues I have in order to figure out like the issues that you have or the problem that you have to always be on top of. This leads to the next thing. Who do you need to involve? Parent, athlete, physical therapist, or other medical personnel. I list physical therapists because of the fact that you need to get a PT involved. Get a PT that's equipped. Please stop just going to the generic and thinking that it's going to get you what you want. It's not. Healthcare is so different now. Get people who are educated on how to get you on the right track, not just get you on a cookie cutter slash protocol and they swear it's going to work. It's the most worthless thing. And I said it earlier and I'll say it again. Find someone who knows what they're doing and pay the people for what they do. Like, you need to take care of your athlete, but the parent, the athlete, and the therapist all need to be involved on the same page, having these conversations in order to make sure that your recovery post game and practice is proper for you. Now, the last piece, and I promise you guys, I'm out your hair after this one. Performance training. What is performance training? Performance training is programs that target the sport to perform at a high level. It actually targets the sport you play in. People are gonna not like this who are football people. I get so tired of seeing football players do traditional lifts for every position. Like, let's be honest here, guys. Like, a corner, a running back, and a defensive lineman, offensive lineman should not lift the same way. They shouldn't work out the same way. There may be a little bit of overlap, but come on, guys. The reason they do these traditional lists and the reason they have these programs set up the way they have set up at colleges because it's just 100. It's 100 players in college, 85 extra active roster, I think. Yeah, 85 active roster, 100 people in college. Do you really think they have the time to sit there and create something that's going to be individual or even group slash sectional in a sense of DBs do this, running backs do that? No, not every place does that. Do some places do it? Sure. There are some people who do it amazingly. Like, they do it. But I promise you, you can't just lift your way into a sports specific program. You can't. The person who is creating the program has to watch you play or watch that sport enough to understand the things that have to be addressed and the things that a lot of athletes struggle with, and then understanding what you struggle with when they see it, right? So when I talk about performance training, it is not just lifting weights to get stronger. I had a kid tell me yesterday, and my head just was about to implode. Basketball player is getting ready for the season. He's trying to get bigger. He's already 200 pounds, 300. He thinks he's like 215, I think. And, what the height is, you don't get bigger to play basketball. You get stronger to play basketball. You get more agile, more athletic, but you don't get bigger. Like, there's a certain amount of leanness that you have to have. That's why Zion gets killed for his size. It's not because he's not athletic and he can't perform like that for longevity, his body is going to break down. As you saw, he had 40 that night in the playoff game, went to the goal, did a simple move. We thought, we know what happened. Pulled a hamstring. You're just basketball is just way too much cutting and landing, shifting. Just like in softball, it's a lot of cutting, running, jumping, shifting. There's a lot of rotational stuff. It's a lot of things that when you're doing these things in these sport specific performance programs, you have to have people who watch the sport, who just take time to watch you play, to create your program, right? When to do it before and during seasons. Yes, before season starts and then during the season. And then after the season's over with, guess what? You start again. It's a cycle. You're just trying to stay in some type of shape. Take you some time off, get you a month to reset the brain, relax, go on vacation. But you need to make sure you're staying on track with what you like to do, with what you need to do in order for you to perform at the level you want to perform at and have a great success. And last but not least, can I create my own plan? Not really. You can try though. Like it is it's a reason why if you don't build houses, you ask somebody or you hire somebody to build a house. If you don't do surgeries, why you pay people to do surgeries. If you're not a chef, you can cook a little bit for sure. You probably can cook really well. But unless you cook as often as a chef does, you're probably not going to be as great at cooking a lot of different things. You might have this one go-to meal that you the king or queen at, but you need people who know what they're doing. And as a result of that, it's very important for you to get the right people on board to get you on the performance training programs. And if you have questions, you can definitely look us up. Check the description. We have a booking link that you can use to get yourself, set up for a meeting with us and go from there. But if you're in an area where, you can't get to us, there's people in that area that you need to vet, check, ask questions about, and get an understanding of how they're doing what they're doing. Because everybody can't do this job, right? And as a result, in order for you to play the game of softball at a high level, you have to have the right mix of things that work for you as a player. Then, as a player, you have to be accountable going forward and carry those things out. For everybody who made it to this point in the talk, man, I want to say thank you. Please like, comment, and subscribe. This episode of how to um, play softball at a high level throughout all seasons has been powered by 3Gen Sports Science. And I'm Dr. Will Gray. And if you have any questions for us, there goes the link again. Use it, check in with us, tap in with us, contact us, and we'll be willing to help you. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you have a blessed one. I'll catch you in the next one.